AARP's Top Pros Talk, breaking down marketing and communication silos, featuring Martha Boudreau, Chief Communications and Marketing Officer at AARP. And here's your host, Doug Simon.
I don't usually overhype things, and Martha is going to make sure that I keep that promise when I tell you that this is going to be a treat. So let's start off with breaking down what are the different sections of AARP?
AARP is three distinct entities. I work for the parent, which is a 501c4. We are a social mission advocacy organization that has a membership. We also have the 501c3, which is the AARP Foundation, which is focused on senior poverty, on hunger issues, work and jobs, transportation, and a whole variety of things within the confines of the foundation. And we also have a wholly owned subsidiary called AARP Services, which manages our business relationships with companies that carry the AARP brand and other businesses that we do have our work with in partnership.
Yeah, and keeping with the spirit of throwing a lot of acronyms out there, your title, CCMO, that's a lot. Can you break that down, what that means to the audience?
Yeah, this is interesting because there are not a lot of CCMO titles, especially in the Washington market. All the communications channels, all of our marketing channels are wrapped up under my business unit, which is called Integrated Communications and Marketing. So I'm responsible, first of all, for membership, for growing our membership and engaging our members. And I'm also responsible for the whole variety of different communications channels we have, everything from our magazine and our bulletin. Our magazine is the most read publication in the country. We have our social channels. We're across all the different platforms. I'm also responsible for consumer experience, which really speaks to how individuals experience our brand and that it's seamless and easy to work with us. And so one thing I want to note, we are the largest publisher in the country. I'm not only responsible for the magazine and the bulletin, but a series 5 different specialty newsletters that are focused on specific audiences like veterans and men and African-American women. So when you hear the title CCMO with me, what that means is all of the channels that we use to communicate externally, but my role is to make sure that all those channels roll up to one clear brand voice.
And that's such an important point because there's been talk, are the silos breaking down? How do you define marketing, communications, customer experience as a part of it? So how do you try and bring them together? Because it's something so many brands are challenged with. What's maybe a key way to get started?
Yeah, I think that the issue of breaking down silos and integrating different disciplines is something that everybody in communications and marketing deal with. And that was the reason that my position was created. I'm the first person to hold the CCMO position at AARP. And it's because previously, all the different communications and marketing disciplines, whether it was media relations or digital marketing or our studios, video, social, it was all in individual business units. They all had different KPIs. They were all driven by different objectives. And so they were all rolled together. So I can tell you this, breaking down silos requires 3 things. It requires an organizational structure that puts all of the different disciplines and all of the channels under the authority of one person. It also requires aligning key performance indicators, right? People have to have the same goals so that they're working in unison towards the same outcomes. And then the third piece, Doug, is to have a culture of integrating channels and also collaborating between channels. It is the 3 of those things. You cannot just have the organizational structure and you can't just have a culture. They all come together to enable organizations to break down silos for the benefit of the brand.
Yeah, it also takes a lot of trust. And I know you're uniquely skilled. I've been a fan of yours, since we've known each other for a while. Like, what if you don't necessarily have a Martha Boudreau, but you still want to break down those silos and get it together without ending up with factions battling and fighting for each other and trying to take the leadership? Because it's got to be, you don't want that waste of energy going on.
That speaks to the issue of the relationships at the senior most levels in an organization. At AARP, we have an executive team, which is people that handle our advocacy and our foundation and myself and our general counsel and our head of operations. all of those executives, we all have to come together to understand that creating a clear brand voice is essential so that each of the executive team members is managing their teams to that same outcome. And the other thing is, like anything that is going to get accomplished, you have to hold people accountable. You have to hold people accountable for making sure that their initiative, their program is not executed in and of itself, just in their business unit. They have to tie it together. And you know what? The fact is, the work is never done. Integrating is hard, and it doesn't just perpetuate itself. You have to drive toward it and demand that people integrate their work across a whole series of disciplines. And so I guess that's the one thing I would really want people to understand. When you have a CCMO role, you're dealing with everything from experts in social platform marketing to creatives who are creating award-winning, in our case, award-winning content on video. And then you also have people who are experts in terms of deep dive advocacy journalism, and how you bring all of them together. It requires a level of being deliberate and a commitment to the organizational voice.
Yeah, I know you have a lot of leaders within your organization, and most organizations do. So it's a matter of getting everyone aligned on goals and then giving those leaders some maybe leeway in the strategies of how they're going to achieve it and stay on message, or does everyone have to sort of do it the same way and with the same approach?
Well, we have an organizational dashboard. And so people have to see what their role is in achieving those dashboard objectives. And I kind of equate it to like a relay, right? If somebody is writing great content for our website and getting all kinds of responses to that content, how do we take those engagements and hand them off to the next person so that we can provide more relevant content to the next person? So the leaders in each of the different disciplines and each of the different channels have to understand that their job is not to do transactional interactions in terms of transactional communications, but to build a relationship with the consumers that other colleagues work with across the board in terms of sharing other resources. So you got to have a vision, right? People have to know that they're going to be held accountable for doing it. And then you always have to drive that culture. But you are right. It is a challenge, and leadership has to set the tone and has to insist that that level of integration cascades down.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of misperception out there about people as they age, even with young people such as ourselves on that, what they're
Absolutely.
about. What do you find are some of the errors, mistakes that marketers might make in talking about people who are 40s, 50s, 60s, et cetera, as they age? Because it's changed dynamically from what it was even a generation ago.
It's aging today, Doug. It's so different from even 20 years ago. And it's all grounded in one reality, which is thanks to basic science and healthcare technology, people are living longer and healthier lives than ever before. So we're talking about 20, 30 years more than generations ago. And so what people do with that time, and it's not that extends the oldest of age, but rather middle of life, where there's so many options. So people are pursuing education at different moments in life. The average age of a grandparent is 50. So if you have a product or a service or a campaign that you want to target at grandparents, we're not talking 75-year-olds, although yes, that is an age. You have to target younger. So the way I like to look at it is that you need to look at this enormous demographic based on their life stage, not their age.
It is an important distinction you make between age and life stage. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So often as people think about the aging population, they're categorizing people by their exact age, 50, 60, 70, and making determinations about their life based on that. But the fact is, it is much more about life stage, because as people get 20 and 30 extra years of life, they are parenting at different ages, more so than ever before. They're traveling, and as you get older, you tend to be living in multi-generational family units, if you will. And if you have children and grandchildren and you're in your 60s, your spending habits change. So marketers and communicators have to look not just at the demographic data, with age as a key part of demography, they also have to look at behavioral data, and they have to look at life stage that people are in and look at the whole person based on how they're living their life, not just based on what their age is.
Any final point you'd like to leave the audience with?
In terms of advertising and imagery for the 50 plus, the outdated way of looking at this age segment, which is 110 million people, is that they wear beige pantsuits, they're sitting on benches, staring off into the distance, and a lot of times in a healthcare setting. That's the imagery. And imagery matters. It drives societal perceptions of segments, and that is true with the 50 plus population as well. But the fact is, these people, the 50 plus, are living dynamic lives. They're consuming, they're trying new brands. They are not isolated. And so communicators and marketers need to challenge their own ideas about aging, right, update them based on the data and the reality of what it is today, right, so they can connect to this enormous demographic.
Yeah, no, and that's amazing. And so many of the people making those decisions probably have parents who are active and even grandparents who are active, but they're not even thinking of it in terms of what their own experience is. Thanks so much for making sure I didn't overhype how terrific it would be to speak with you. I really appreciate your insights.
Doug, thanks so much. Really, truly a pleasure. I appreciate it.